7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
To pursue science is not to disparage the things of the spirit. In fact, to pursue science rightly is to furnish the framework on which the spirit may rise.
Welcome to the Endless Frontiers, your home for all things science, fiction, and science fiction. I'm your host, Jed Morgan, and thank you so much for joining me for episode 8 of the Write or Flight podcast. We're tearing through these. This was a new idea that I had with the channel relaunch, and I think it's been going well. I enjoy these streams quite a lot because I get to talk about the science that no one in my personal life knows anything about, and of course the pop culture that I'm very much invested in. So this is a great stream for me. I hope you're all enjoying it as much as I am. Speaking of which, hail and howdy to everyone across the chats, whether or not you're watching on the YouTube or Kick side. I appreciate you being here. Whether or not you're a lurker as well, I'm a lurker myself, usually when I watch other streams. But of course, hail and howdy to Legatus Legionus, the bot supreme himself, doing the Lord's work on both YouTube and Kick. See you in both sides already. Thank you for being here, my friend. I imagine more people will roll in a little bit here after Adam the Renaissance Nerds finishes up his daily dive stream. We share an audience. We do so many things together that it makes sense. I might need to push Write or Flight back to a different time slot to just give him enough time. I know his streams plan on being an hour, but when topics come up, he goes over, and it's absolutely understandable. I should try to give him a little bit more time. So I'm considering pushing back this stream to 3 p.m. Eastern on Monday. If that works better for you guys, or if you guys like the sound of that, please absolutely let me know. It's mainly because of him. I don't want to stream too much over him, and it would be nice to free up the audience that we share to watch both of our streams completely without having to pick and choose between the two of us. And hail to Dr. Rachel Morgan over in the YouTube side. Let's go Write or Flight. Yes, let's go Write or Flight. Today we're going to be talking about writing and flight today, which is a very exciting thing. I think this stream is going to be actually fairly balanced between the science and the science fiction and the fiction in general aspect, which isn't usual. Usually it leans pretty heavily one way or another, but we've got some Artemis 2 news. We've got some Star Trek, Starfleet Academy stuff to talk about, some Doctor Who. Last week, I highlighted an independent game that I was very much looking forward to, Tales Edge, and I enjoyed that segment a lot, so I'm going to bring that back to highlight a game that not a whole lot of people know about that's coming out this year that I just want to highlight, get people's attention on it. Then, of course, the writing aspect. We will be doing the chat Choose Your Own Adventure at the end, where you, the chat, help me write a story, kind of a Mad Lib style, very much improv based, using a combination of of dice rolls and super chats to craft stories. Every single one of the stories that we've done thus far on Chat Choose Your Own Adventure has been absolutely insane. these stories that we're crafting are bizarre. The werewolf vampire love was definitely a strong start, a weird start, but a strong start. And last week, the urban fantasy lawyer story was absolutely interesting. So you never know what's going to happen out of those, whether or not it's the dice rolls creating chaos or if it's the chat creating chaos. But it's always a lot of fun, no matter how those stories turn out. Legatus on YouTube said, I'd rather reread Dr. Seuss than the last two Doctor Who Cares seasons. I mean, that's a pretty legitimate choice. Dr. Seuss is, remembered for a reason. His stories are very good. I never got into a whole lot of them, but they're iconic and people love them to this day. Children are still partaking in them. Parents are still introducing their kids to them. So yeah, I think that is a much better choice than checking out Shooty Who's final 2 seasons, or his 2 seasons in general, because it's absolutely horrific what Doctor Who has become over the last, we're almost at 10 years. We're almost at 10 years that Doctor Who has been officially dead. I know some people have different parts where they give up on New Who and they stop watching, whether or not that's the 50th anniversary or the end of the Peter Capaldi run. Those are the 2 most common places to dip out of New Who. But regardless, we're about a decade, even from the 50th anniversary, which was about, 12 years ago now? Actually longer. Jesus, it was 13. So 13 years ago. And we're coming up on 2017, 10 years ago, when Peter Capaldi left the role. So Doctor Who's been dead for a very long time, depending on how bad you thought the show got at different points and when you gave up on it. But for me personally, Peter Capaldi leaving the show is when I stopped my rewatches of New Who, and that was 2017 Christmas time. So less than 2 years. Oof. I miss Doctor Who, man. I really miss Doctor Who. I never got the opportunity that so many other Doctor Who fans to excitedly await a new episode, watch it live, see it happen before you, and fall in love with the new episode. Unfortunately, I've never really experienced that with anything because I, as many people know, I'm quite young. I'm only 26, and the pop culture landscape was decimated by the time I became an adult and really started to partake in true great pop culture, like watching old Star Trek, Doctor Who, everything like that. So Doctor Who, the first episode of Doctor Who I ever saw was Heaven Sent, which was in Peter Capaldi's 2nd season at the end. And I didn't watch it live. That just happened to be what my cousin put on and showed me. But the first episode of Doctor Who that I watched live reacting to was Jodie Whittaker's first episode. It's not a great place to watch your first live episode. And all the other TV shows that are coming out these days, I haven't loved. There's been some that I'm okay with, but there's no big collection moments like that where people just, when FOMO was at its height, back in early days of Game of Thrones, for example, if you didn't watch the newest episode of Game of Thrones and right away you felt like you were missing out and you really were suffering for not experiencing that, at least as that's how it's been described to me. By the time I started watching Game of Thrones, season 7 was already out. Season 8 was the first season that I watched live as it came out weekly. I've never experienced a new episode of television coming out weekly that I just had to watch when it came out, and I was so excited to watch it, and I loved it when it came out. I totally missed the golden age of television, and that's very disappointing to me. So, and I don't think I'll ever actually experience it at this point with the current landscape of pop culture and television. But that was not a little tangent that I was expecting at the beginning of the stream. I do have some topics to get to. Thank you, Legatus, for that little tangent with mentioning Dr. Seuss and Doctor Who. Because yeah, it's always fun to have these little tangents. It's always it's cathartic, if nothing else, to talk about these. So the first thing I do want to talk about, though, is a little bit of a interview clips from Matt Damon, of all people. Matt Damon has some very interesting thoughts, and it's not about the Odyssey, which I am watching very, very closely to make sure it's not an abysmal failure, because I'm so worried about the Odyssey. It's about a new Netflix movie that I didn't know was coming out before this weekend. So let's dive into this first story with Matt Damon. Netflix tells directors to repeat plot for people using phones while watching, says Matt Damon. We all knew this was happening. This was a rumored rule at Netflix and all these streaming services and even at movies for a long time, but we're getting official confirmation that this rule is actually taking place. I was called crazy. I'm called crazy all the time by these crazy people who love what's going on in pop culture for predicting stuff like this. but every single time it's proved to be accurate. Our thoughts about the behind the scenes actions, we're told we're lying, we're told we're crazy, and then a few years later they're like, oh yeah, by the way, that was all true, sorry. And this is yet another example of it. I want to get into some of his specific thoughts here. He said, the standard way to make an action movie that we learned was you usually have 3 set pieces. One in the first act, one in the second act, one in the third. You spend most of your money on that one in the third act. That's your finale. So that's just Matt Damon talking about making traditional action movies in the theatrical sphere over the last 30 years that him and Ben Affleck have been in the entertainment industry, starting with Good Will Hunting, which is just an incredible, incredible film. So this has been the standard for decades, and I'm sure long before he got into the action movie genre in Hollywood. And this does make sense. I don't love movies being this formulaic, but at least this formula made sense. He went on to say it's a little bit different now working for Netflix. And now they're like, can you put a big one in the first 5 minutes? We want people to stay tuned in, and it wouldn't be terrible if you reiterated the plot 3 or 4 times in the dialogue because people are on their phones while they're watching. The attention span of the audience, the modern day people, partially because of social media, like we talked about on Roundtable yesterday, has eroded their attention span so much that they can't stand to watch a movie. Yes, I'm usually doing something else. I like to play video games, or I'm always multitasking, but that doesn't come at the expense of the film. I don't need the film to constantly beat me over the head with the plot. These people, they do. So this isn't necessarily even Netflix's fault that they have to do this. This is a reality of the world we live in. I don't blame Netflix, but they are perpetuating it and making this behavior work. These people, they feel like, oh, I can actually stay on my phone and not pay attention to the movie, and I'll still figure out what's going on because they keep reminding me. If Netflix stopped doing that, that behavior might decrease a little bit. So they're fueling the fire of this behavior, of this attention span issue. And it's sad to see. It's very sad to see that you have to reiterate the plot 3 or 4 times. And you see it in all these Netflix movies, in these TV shows. They're constantly exposizing the same crap over and over and over again. And it just feels forced. It's abrasive, and it's not subtle. They just come out and say everything that mean. They don't care who they're talking to, if someone should understand what they're talking about. Like in Starfleet Academy, for example, in episode 2, there was a moment where Holly Hunter's Chancellor Ake was talking to the Dean of the War College and looks like an admiral high up in Starfleet. They're talking about the Betazoid diplomatic crisis that's currently going on. That's been going on for the last 100 years. So her, barefoot, out of uniform, in the cafeteria, just randomly starts lecturing them about the entire history of Betazoid. Like, 100 years ago, they put up a wall because they didn't like what everyone was doing during the burn, and now they don't let anybody in or out, but they're finally listening to their kids who want to be out in the universe, so they're coming here to negotiate. Isn't that great? She's lecturing a major political crisis that's going on to 2 people who should be experts on it. Can you imagine, I don't know, let's say the president of West Point, or whoever is the highest ranking person at West Point, going to the White House, for example, and lecturing the chief of staff about North Korea? It just randomly cut to the president of West Point walking around barefoot in the White House and like, hey, Mr. Chief of Staff, did you know North Korea's isolationist? They don't really like people. There was this war that happened 100 years ago, almost, that was really bad, and they just don't like other people. Isn't that weird? It's jarring. It doesn't make any sense. These people are the ones who should know about the situation better than her, and yet that's what we see because they have to reiterate the plot, and these writers, these directors don't have the talent or the wherewithal to introduce it in a way that makes sense. They're having to reiterate everything 3 or 4 times because people are on their phones. And it's just a snake eating its own tail. It's untalented people making untalented stories, giving horrible direction by their studios to reiterate the plot and stuff like that, which just makes everything worse, and it compounds on each other, making the audience not want to pay attention even more. And it keeps feeding on each other. They're making the problems worse, which makes their instructions worse, and their talent's already as bad as it possibly can be. At least I hope it is. And it's just this endless cycle that's degrading the quality of television immensely, where it's going to be unwatchable for most people at some point. There's a few glimmers out there, the Taylor Sheridan stuff. A lot of people still really enjoy that stuff. But how long before we even lose that? When rules like this are in place, when there's the culture that they're supporting that is this way. and I'm just very disappointed by it. The rest of the comments aren't anything to speak of, and I'm really impressed with what Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have been doing with this Netflix movie. I doubt I'll watch it. I don't actually care, but in traditional films, theatrical runs, it's fairly common for crew members to get a bonus if the movie does well in theaters. But on streaming services, it is my opinion that when a movie's very expensive on a streaming service platform or TV show, like these $200 million Star Wars Disney Plus shows, it is physically impossible for them to make money. The streaming service is not a money-making scheme when it comes to developing your own television, your own products. So when it came to crews on Netflix movies, for example, they don't get bonuses when it does well, because how do you define when it does well? It doesn't make money. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck pushed for Netflix to renegotiate everything to give their crew members bonuses if it hit viewership markers, which is the best thing that they can do. So at least they're fighting for the crew. And we know crew members, they don't have any control over the quality of these stories. They're just doing their best. They're working their 9 to 5, and I don't have anything against crew members on any of these horrible, horrible shows. So I appreciate seeing them, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, highlighting these crew members and giving something back to these people who work so hard on so much crap. While we were talking about that, we got a raid from Adam the Renaissance Nerd. I appreciate that, brother. Welcome in everyone who came in from the Daily Dive. I know those streams are a lot of fun. He got some great viewership today after the spike his channel's been getting from Starfleet Academy. I hope you all enjoyed that stream. I tuned in for part of it, part of that Doctor Who article, and we will be briefly going over that as well later on in the stream. But how is everyone doing? I see the Weasel joined over on the YouTube side. Curmudgeon Conquest coming in. The legions of the curmudgeon have been unleashed upon the world. Are you going to use Bolshevik tactics like he kept saying in the stream? You're just going to shout the loudest? I'd be all right with that. The more people chatting, the more YouTube will recommend it. So use those tactics that Adam has been importing upon the curmudgeon legions. All right, let's see where we're at. I'm just checking the tip side very, very quickly. For those of you who aren't aware of how this stream works, we just go through a few news stories in the science and fiction areas. I talk to the chat. These are very laid-back streams. We just have a lot of fun. And then at the very end, I do a chat segment called Chat Choose Your Own Adventure. We're using a combination of dice rolls and super chats. We craft these short stories together, kind of Mad Lib style, and they're a lot of fun. So we'll be getting to that at the end of the stream. But welcome in everyone who joined in from the Daily Dive. Unfortunately, the next thing I'm going to bring up is not as fun to talk about as Matt Damon explaining what's going on in Hollywood, about highlighting his crew, giving them bonuses and stuff like that. I'm going to make you all suffer because I had to suffer. I suffered for your entertainment. Now you will get a taste of what that is like. We're going to be reacting to a specific scene from Starfleet Academy, Episode 2. I know, don't click away, don't click away. There is commentary to be had for it. It's going to be painful, but we're going to get through it and get some insight into this particular scene. It's a scene that I didn't really talk about on the live stream review last week, or even in my review very much, because I wanted to focus on the writing and the plot and stuff like that. This is the science class scene from Episode 2, where we get a little bit of an insight into what they believe is temporal mechanics, quantum physics, and stuff like that, and it's absolutely horrendous. But we're going to try to clip through it at a good pace. I'm actually going to increase the speed a little bit because I don't want to get hit for copyright, and I'll be pausing, reacting, and everything like that. So I'm going to start at 1.5 times speed on it. If that's too fast for anyone, please absolutely let me know. We're going to dive into beta test. All right. You guys should all be able to hear it once I start playing it. You should be able to see it. Let me know if there are any technical difficulties. We're not actually watching this scene that's up on camera right now. We just need to watch the end of it because the first bit of dialogue from the next scene is played here. So let's dive into it.
The shortest distance between 2 points is not a straight line. The laws of physics hate me because I should not be here.
I don't even know how to react to that. The shortest distance between 2 points is not a straight line. It is, but straight lines can warp, if that's what she's referring to. Is she talking about the folding of space? This is a first day physics class at Starfleet Academy, and you'll notice that she just randomly says sciencey sounding things, but they're not connected. They're not building. This doesn't look like a lecture. She's just saying 5-second blurbs that are kind of sciencey sounding and pretending like it's a cogent lecture. That doesn't mean anything. And she says there, science doesn't like me. Physics doesn't like me. We'll get into why physics doesn't like her, but it's absolutely retarded, and it just shows that these people making a science fiction show have no understanding for physics. This isn't even Wikipedia knowledge. This is, I heard this term once in a sci-fi show. I think it sounds cool. This is probably what it means. The actual understanding of physics is that of fifth graders at best.
You, girl with the face, begging to be singled out. Why do physics hate me?
Because you're not supposed to be here.
Thumbs up for listening.
Physics doesn't hate anyone. Physics is incapable of hating anything. There are things that, based on our current understanding of physics, can seem incongruent. For example, the rules of general relativity from Einstein and quantum physics are incompatible as they currently exist. So general relativity works for everything on a macro scale. Everything we see from our life to the universe, orbital mechanics, all that is put into there. But when you get down to the size of atoms and whatnot, it falls apart, and that's when quantum mechanics come in, and quantum mechanics have very different rules at that size. They are two different types of physics, but that is a problem with our understanding. That's why they're looking for what's called a unified theory that Einstein actually spent the last few years of his life searching for, a theory that could bridge the gap between quantum physics and general relativity. The movie Interstellar was actually focused on that quite a lot. If you guys remember from that film, when Cooper falls into the black hole and they're trying to get that quantum data, they keep mentioning that. It's specifically to build that unified theory. In a black hole, the laws of both orders really fall apart, both quantum mechanics and general relativity. So it is believed that inside the event horizon of a black hole, there is data that can be read that can help build that unified theory that connects it. So physics doesn't actually hate anything, and physics isn't actually incongruent with anything. Our understanding of physics is incomplete and constantly being refined. So once you find out something is possible, like she's going to mention here in a minute, that doesn't mean that physics is wrong or that physics doesn't like you because you found a way of doing things other than our current understanding of things. It just means our current understanding was flawed and needed to be updated. It's so emotional. That's the thing that you'll see throughout this entire clip is science. Yes, you can be emotional about science. You can get excited about it. But when it comes down to the actual data, there is empirical data in there. It's not, oh, I feel this way, so this is the way it is. This is gender studies. This is friendship 101. This isn't quantum physics or temporal mechanics. From the chat real fast, Legata says, my eyes, not Starfleet ass again. I'm sorry, I do have to show this clip. I hope we're transforming it enough. That's why I'm trying to keep it in brief windows for you guys. Dr. Rachel, I don't even know much about Star Trek, but even I could tell the show was awful. It is abysmal. It actually gets worse when you understand Star Trek, but it's still horrifically bad if you don't. Rachel says, don't worry, modern Madame Hooch. It's not just physics. We don't like you either. Yes, I don't think anyone likes Tig Notaro, a gender-neutral comedian who's not very funny. Legatus, they took everything Gene Roddenberry said Star Trek should be, and New Trek did the exact opposite. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Dr. Rachel also said, no, Jed. I talked to Mr. Physics, and he told me he truly hated this woman and this show. All right, Mr. Physics, if he had a definitive statement about that, I do retract my statement. Physics does indeed hate Tig Notaro.
Entropy times arrow.
Hey, you're absorbing all the energy in the room. For real, you're like a sponge. Can you chill?
Guys,
by the way, that was the TISM representation, that woman there, or that girl there. You're sucking up all the energy in the room. Can you just chill? I would be offended if I had autism to see this type of autistic representation in a show, but that's just me. And we kind of missed it a little bit there in the pausing of the video and what these two fat bitches are saying to each other. She said, entropy times arrow. So entropy is a complicated subject, and it's all about moving from order to disorder. Nature, especially on the macro scale, not the quantum physics scale, has this tendency to reduce into disorder. It's not universal. It's just there's a tendency to do so. Like an ice cube it melts into disorder. It's not clear-cut rules, and it's not a definitive law or anything like that. It's just highlighting the tendencies from going disorder, order, and whatnot, stuff like that. And time's arrow, it specifically talked about why time, you can't move forward and backwards easily. There's a tendency to go forward in time, and that it's unstoppable, and it's disordered. The past is order because it's all set in stone. It's perfectly done. It's unmovable. Into the future, which is uncertain and can go in a whole lot of different ways. Disorder. So that's all that's talking about. It doesn't say that you can't time travel. Entropy is just a tendency towards disorder. It's not a law that disorder must occur. And time's error, that is a phrase that is accurately used to talk about time moving from an ordered past to a chaotic future. But it gets so much worse here in just a moment. Legata said, but Rachel, I heard through the grapevine that Mr. Science Guy approved the jargon. All right, let's keep going. That face, though. That face. That's kind of how I felt watching the whole episode.
Born in 2215 and jumped almost 1,000 years into the future. You can go with the poetry for 5 minutes.
So if you notice, that was an actual lecture she was trying to say. So she starts off with saying, the shortest distance between 2 points is not a straight line. Physics hate me because entropy is time's arrow. I was born in 2250 and nearly 1,000 years ago. You can go with the poetry for a minute. Those individual statements don't actually weave into an actual point. They're just nonsense phrases that sound timey-wimey a little bit. And that's something I want to talk about. So she specifically thinks that physics hate her because she time traveled from the past. There are a lot of problems with that. The first thing I want to note here before we get into that is she's an instructor at Starfleet Academy. She is from nearly 1,000 years before the events of this TV show. Do people not know, especially in the writer's room, how long 1,000 years is? Even if you were the smartest person on the planet 1,000 years before this, you are not qualified to teach children anything about anything. We know how much technology evolves over time and scientific understanding just in the last century with what's called the 5,000-year leap. Can you imagine a college professor from 1910 showing up today and lecturing a current day university? I mean, yes, he'd be a better instructor, but his information is out of date and he doesn't know the current understanding of things. He wouldn't know about general relativity. He'd probably be talking about absolute space or something like that from Newtonian physics. But think about this. Someone in the 13th century time travels into the future to 2025 and starts teaching a physics class. 1,000 years is a long fucking time. There's nobody in the 13th century who will know enough to teach at a university level. At even an elementary school level, they have to be re-educated, not about, the way they think or the way that they view the world politically or anything like that, but just so much has changed in those years. Just the language itself should have evolved so much colloquially that it's so difficult to understand a person. Could we understand Old English? I sure as shit couldn't. It is a different language. So they made no considerations for that because they talk the same way. In Star Trek Discovery, in that 2200s that she's talking about, and this year 3000, whatever it is, they all talk exactly the same. They talk like LA teenagers. Yo, ass, blow it up your ass, shit, what? It's awful. It is fucking awful. And I do apologize. I do have to turn off my camera for a moment to sneeze. But yeah, why are any of these people in positions of authority and instructing children when they shouldn't know anything about anything? All right, I don't actually need to sneeze. I'll be all right. Dr. Rachel says, isn't she a hologram character? Are they trying to say that Tism is so unbelievable and smart that you can't be a real person? So it's actually the other way around, Rachel. So the black girl who had the energy or whatnot, she's the holographic person, and it does seem like she has a Tism. But the other fat girl across the room who was like, hey, you're sucking up all the energy, she's the Tism representation. She's the one who earlier on in the episode went to the doctor, or the last episode, and said, I swallowed my comm badge again. So she's the Tism representation. And I'm sure the holograph black girl is also a Tism person. The Weasel says, Legatus, you mean that mechanical engineer that pretends to be a scientist on TV? Okay, Mr. Science Guy, do you mean Bill Nye? Does Bill Nye approve of the science of current day Star Trek? That's awful. If that's who you're talking about, Mr. Science Guy, I'm assuming that's so disappointing. Dr. Rachel, I would love to host a lecture from a psychology from 100 years ago. To be honest, fascinating how much psych and many other fields have evolved over time. Oh yeah, it would absolutely be fascinating to compare and contrast and do single lectures. It's more the permanent position. I would love to hear that as well, just to see what their understanding at the time was. But unfortunately, we do have to keep going.
Whoop, red alert. New building, still working out the kinks. Just give me a second.
All right, so this classroom has holographic walls because, you know, they're on a spaceship and sometimes they might be in space and they want to have a nice view to look out the windows at. And it broke down. And while the teacher has stopped lecturing and is repairing a piece of technology that she uses for instruction, this student, Caleb Meir, gets out his tablet to do something that's important to him. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, just off the bat here. If your instructor has stopped teaching you, what's wrong? I do actually have to turn it off real quick. All right. Frank Blackswood says, recommend reading Variable Man, a short story by Philip K. Dick. Interesting. Definitely will check that out. But yeah, for this, so instructor stopped speaking to her class and is repairing a projector. Let's say it's a projector in a modern day class. Would there be anything wrong with getting out a different textbook, doing some homework for another class, finishing up your notes on something else, or just getting out your phone and looking at social media when your instructor actively finishes or briefly stops talking? I think that's totally fine, but we'll see how Thich Nhat Hanh reacts to a student utilizing the break with actual research. So he's trying to find the planet where he heard his mom might be, but he can't find the planet.
What's on Doja 5?
Very Attack of the
You bored?
Clones.
Class not riveting enough for you?
I'm bored. Just like, what else?
Excellent question. I guess Goja 5 is sexier than entropy? More of a turn-on than time itself?
Why did she have to go a sexual angle with this? Goja 5 is sexier than entropy. Entropy's not sexy. All right? Say something like a normal person. Say, oh, is Goja 5 more interesting than time travel? Which is kind of a legitimate question. Like, probably not. But she's dressing him down in front of the entire class for using spare time in the class to do private research that is very important to him. And she starts talking about how sexy everything is. Oh my God, isn't it so sexy? Ooh.
Enlighten us, please.
I can save everyone's time by rerouting the power junction so that it has a dedicated power supply, which is how it should have been wired in the first place. Also, not to be rude, but there's nothing you can teach me that I don't already know about temporal mechanics. And I'm actually...
To be fair, he is an absolute douchebag of a character, and I don't think he's going to get any better. But I don't see anything wrong with his behavior prior to that comment about how she can't teach him anything. But that comment is probably true. Like I mentioned, she's 1,000 years out of date on scientific advancement. She shouldn't be teaching anybody about anything.
trying to do some real shit, so let me get to it.
Huh, some real shit. Okay. Well, please, stand at the front of the class.
Definitely love shit
0%
being said a lot in Star
Introduce
Trek.
yourself to everyone. And
Are you kidding? 0% kidding. The dialogue is absolutely horrendous.
sadly, we don't offer a course in accredited sulking. Plant your feet and tell us who you are.
Caleb here.
Sorry, I'm not a bat. You have to speak at a human volume.
Caleb!
She's such a douchebag as well. I would hate to have an instructor like her dressing me down for doing something that is probably actually a good thing to do in a moment like that, and talking about sexiness in front of the class. This is embarrassing what she's doing to him. And I was in the military when your drill instructor, or we called them MTIs in the Air Force, had stuff to instruct us on in actual classroom settings. They just would tell you to shut up and move on. What we were learning, we had such a finite time to do these classrooms that it was immediately shut it down and, you know, take larger action if it's a more extreme situation. But him just being on there, put your thing away, and then we'll keep going with the class. They would never interrupt in a military setting to this degree to dress someone down like this, especially because she's not making a point about physics, actual physics. It's absolutely horrendous. Dash says she seems to think she's here to teach ancient gender studies. Yeah, that does seem fairly accurate to what she's going to say here, because it's only going to get worse.
Mir.
I didn't ask your name. I asked who you are. What do you stand for? Have you ever seen a ghost? Made a mixtape? What is the worst birthday present you ever got?
Arrested.
How is she a teacher? Tell us who you are. My name's Caleb Mir. I didn't ask your name. I asked what the worst birthday present you ever had is. This isn't helping anyone. This isn't advancing their understanding of physics. This isn't building camaraderie, which should be an important thing in a military setting. This is just embarrassing and uncomfortable to watch.
Awesome. You can never have enough misdemeanors in quantum physics, if you ask me. Okay, here's an easy one. The name...
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she thought crime was actually sexy, because she thinks everything is sexy. So I don't think that was hyperbole or irony, was what you're saying, or sarcastic.
...of this cadet. Being a cadet...
All right, I just want to point out this class assembled based on the in-universe timeline, which is already way too short, but Caleb has known this entire class for 2 days. 2 days. And how many people are in that room? They have different classes, they have different things to do. 2 days is not enough time to get to know every single person in your class. I went to basic training, and I mean, we were so out of it that first week, 0 week, because it was a culture shock. Like, most people in my flight couldn't even remember 0 week by the time we were halfway through basic training. It was just so much thrown at us at once. And we didn't really start to get to know each other until week 1 or 2, with the exception of like who was sitting right next to us, our wingmans and stuff like that, our bunkmates and everything in our immediate circle. But getting to know everyone in the flight after a week or two, it's unreasonable to ask him to know the name of a random student after 2 days in a situation like this, a military setting like this.
Starfleet Academy means being open to the people around you.
So being a cadet in Starfleet Academy means being open to the people around you. That doesn't make any sense. Being a cadet in Starfleet Academy means that you're training to be a member of the most elite exploratory military force in human history. Yes, they are explorers first at Starfleet Academy, but they can hold their own. They are a strong military force. Throughout their history, they've stood up against the Klingon and Romulan empires. They've stood up to the frickin' Borg before. They instill strength of character, strength of body and mind at Starfleet. That's what it should be about. And camaraderie, trusting the man beside you, not being open to the people around you. Friendship is the true magic of quantum physics. We're all like quantumly entangled by love. It's so wishy-washy. You never want to have a physics teacher who's degrading physics or anything scientific with emotion. Science is, yes, our understanding of it evolves as new data comes out, but there is an empirical nature to it that needs to be unemotional. You need to be able to separate your feelings from the facts when you look at data, when you look at the results of a test or anything like that, where it's so clear-cut, measurable. You can't be, oh, but I don't like it because my feelings are hurt by them. Let's pretend it doesn't exist. That's an exact problem with modern-day scientific circles, is they so often allow their emotions to override the data, and they change the data to reflect their emotions. This is an extrapolation of what's wrong with the scientific field in our current day and age.
And that connection is where time and space really live.
I don't need...
That connection is where time and space lives. Throw out relativity. Throw out the fabric of space and time. Throw out everything Einstein and Newton taught us about absolute space-time, everything like that. It's friendship. That's the magic that holds the universe together. Time and space. It's soul-crushing. It's not empirical. There's so many places out in the universe where there aren't intelligent life, so there's no friendship and love to hold things together. There's other things holding things together. Dr. Rachel says her attempts to talk teen language and joke around to be relatable are awful. As a teacher, this would not be is not how you relate to students. Absolutely correct. She doesn't seem loving. She's a bully. This is absolutely bullying what she's doing to Caleb here. That's why I don't like him as a character. He's a douchebag. I don't care about him. But even he doesn't deserve what she's doing to him. This is inappropriate on so many levels. And I forgot to talk about it earlier in the entropy discussion about why time travel doesn't actually care. But we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, you're a genius who owns all the suffering. I only know two things, kid. Number one, old age and treachery always triumph over youth and a smart mouth. Oscar Wilde. Love that dude. Fun.
I'm just pausing here for transformative purposes. Yeah, but yeah, they think they're smart because they're quoting Oscar Wilde. I bet you they Googled cool quotes about wisdom and just picked one off of the stack. Dash 100% common core physics. It doesn't exist in most scientific studies these days. There's a big problem with that these days, and definitely doesn't exist here.
In fact, when he died,
That's perfect way of putting it. Judas Goat Barbecue. I said that name out loud and I couldn't help but laugh. Praise in public, punish in private. That's how you do it in most settings, especially in an academic setting. That's absolutely how you should do it. In military, it is a little bit different. There is a punish in public aspect of it when going through basic training and stuff like this, but this is the equivalent of officer training school or West Point, and I'm sure they do things differently there. But even when you punish in public, when I was at basic training, it's quick. You got your point across and you moved on. You're like, all right, you fucked up. They weren't allowed to say down and give me 20 when I went to the Air Force, which is just sad. My Air Force basic training experience was pretty pathetic, honestly, with what they were and weren't allowed to do. But they just yell at you real quick and move on because they knew that there was a finite amount of time to do things, and we're having so much shit thrown at us that we just need to keep moving. So they do their thing and then move it on. But if there's anything actually serious that needed to be stuffed, like a major breach, like hacking, like Caleb does at one point, hacking Starfleet, that's done in private with officers, and a lot more is involved in something like that. But yeah, this is not effective teaching or effective military behavior.
had to put glass over his tombstone because people kept trying to make out with him. Number two, a smart mouth isn't worth a damn without wisdom. But what do I know? I'm old and boring.
She has a massive smart mouth as well. She's entirely hypocritical. Yes, Legatus do as I say, not as I do mentality. She's doing exactly what she's got the same type of personality flaws and doesn't realize it. Dr. Rachel, I find it funny that she's trying to teach the lesson of friendship is what holds time and space together by bullying a student in the first lesson. Yeah, absolutely. She's entirely hypocritical. She's counterproductive to her own points. I just want to point out this scene because it's fucking ridiculous. So class ends, they're running away. If you guys didn't know, that slime that they're all carrying around is from the doctor's class. They're taking a medical class or something like that, biology class from the doctor, and they have the slime that they have to take care of. If it gets out of its container, it multiplies really quickly. If it gets on your skin, they have to neutralize it, and that's how you get a C. If your slime gets out of its case and tries to eat you, you get a C. They asked him, how do you get an F, doctor? Oh, you die. They've laxed. And that was a joke, yes, but he didn't have a legitimate answer for how you fail. These classes are made way too easy where this is the diploma mill. You shouldn't have a military academy be a diploma mill like a modern day university. I just wanted to include this segment because look how she reacts to seeing him get multiplying slime all over his body that can kill him if it isn't responded to quickly enough. She starts laughing at a student who, yes, he's gonna be fine, but his life is legitimately in danger from what was presented.
Biohazardous material detected.
So, yeah, they take care of it. It's fine. I just wanted to point out how she actively starts laughing at a student in mortal peril. She's a horrible, horrible person. But the last scientific thing I want to mention here that I forgot to earlier when she was talking about how physics hate her, the reason why physics hate her is because she's a time traveler, and she believes that time travel is anti-physics, which just fundamentally isn't true. If time travel is possible, it works with physics. It's just against our current understanding of physics to time travel into the past. But that's why I said into the past so importantly. Time travel into the future is possible. It's difficult as all hell, but it doesn't breach entropy. It doesn't breach causality. It doesn't breach Hawking's, what is it called? The time protection conjecture, the time protection conjecture, where time will try to keep itself on track. Like if you ever were to go into the past, your actions wouldn't make a difference because time wants to exist like time wants to exist, was his conjecture. It wasn't a theory. It wasn't a hypothesis. It was just a conjecture before he died. But time travel into the future using special relativity, going near the speed of light, is possible by modern day understanding of physics. So her having time traveled into the future doesn't breach entropy, doesn't break modern physics. They don't understand that. They just assume, hey, we can't time travel right now, so it must be against physics. And I'll make a jab about how it's against physics. And yeah, friendship is the magic that lets you break physics. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of science. This is a misunderstanding of character writing. This is just an abysmal scene that really, I think, encapsulates what is wrong with this show. Just this short 3-minute scene shows you that these writers don't have intellectual capacity, they don't have emotional capacity, and they sure as shit don't have any talent whatsoever. Because this is where we're at with modern Star Trek. Before, they would introduce us to interesting scientific ideas like ghost nebulas and just these crazy out there concepts, introducing science and then extrapolating into a plausible future. It was exciting. It was thought-provoking. And then there was the social element that was always thought-provoking. And they wrote such deep, interesting characters. Now they're like, yeah, I time traveled. That's against physics, but friendship is the magic that lets us warp space and time and make the distance, the shortest distance between 2 points not a straight line. Isn't friendship amazing? It's awful and ridiculous that this is where we're at with modern Star Trek. I was not intending on spending so long on that, but it really triggers something in me. It really opens the floodgates on my brain when I have to watch a scene from that show. It's fucking awful. Dr. Rachel says, someone who swallows their comm badge multiple times got in, and you pass as long as you don't die. My god, this is the easiest academy with the lowest standards I've ever seen. Yes, and this is officer training program for Starfleet. This should be rigorous. What we saw in TNG and Deep Space Nine with Nog and Wesley trying to get into Starfleet Academy, they were both geniuses, and they both struggled immensely to get in. It took multiple attempts for Wesley to get in, and he was getting hands-on experience on the flagship of the fleet. He was better qualified than nearly anybody else, and yet he still struggled. It's supposed to be an elite institution where only the best of the best can get in. Enlisted, of course, has lower standards, but when it comes to officer training, it has to be the best because you want the best in charge when you're going out into the unknown, facing dangers that you can't possibly imagine. Yet, in this version, in this distant future, they've laxed their requirements so much that someone who actively eats their own comm badges is able to get in and cannot fail out without dying or assumedly committing a felony. Because there have been a few times where they discuss expelling Caleb for committing crimes. But he hacked into Starfleet. He's hacking into secure military channels without permission and not getting expelled. That's a felony. That should be a court-martialable offense, but it's not. So it's really almost impossible to not become a Starfleet officer. And you're not learning anything of value from teachers like we just saw there with Tig Notaro. Dash says, they write surface snark without regard for character motivation. Absolutely. It's all snark, no substance. Great way of putting it. Legatus, I would hate to see what happens when an emergency teleportation with multiple comm badges to attract from the teleporter accident that will cause. Yeah, that some real problems could arise from a situation like that. God. And we still have, 8 more episodes of this? I can't believe we have so much more of the show to get through. It's going to be a real ordeal. Dr. Rachel, that's a good point. If these are the standards of officer training, what's enlisted like? Yeah, a warm body and a pulse. It's not even, well, maybe not even a warm body. That might be offensive to necro people or whatever, some awful thing like that. But they're letting people with major disabilities that shouldn't exist into Starfleet Academy. If you can't physically do the work, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be allowed in a situation like that. Like, you wouldn't want a paraplegic Navy SEAL. I'm sorry, that's probably really ableist of me to say. Whoa. But they're letting paraplegic people get into Starfleet Academy. They're letting holographic people into Starfleet Academy who are 4 months old and can only go places where there are holographic emitters. Yes, maybe she might get, one that attaches to herself like the Doctor did in Voyager, but those are some severe restrictions. The Doctor was only in a position that he was because of necessity. The Voyager spacecraft, it got thrown to the Delta Quadrant, cut off from everybody else, and it didn't have medical staff, so he had to step up. It wasn't like they thought, yeah, what we should do is only have a holographic Doctor who can't leave the med bay. It was a victim of circumstance why he became so important to the crew and had so many responsibilities. Now they're actively doing it on purpose, where, yeah, you lose power and your holographic Doctor might not be able to help you, or if she somehow gets all the way up to captain. Can you imagine if a starship or a holo emitter or something like that suffers damage in a space battle and your captain just fizzles out of existence in front of you? Well, hopefully you have a reliable first officer. It's putting people's lives in danger to have people like this as officers in Starfleet. And they're not going to give them assignments based on what they're capable of doing. Like, they're going to let that holographic chick be a captain someday. I fully believe that. They're going to let the paraplegic people be on away missions and stuff like that. It's just, it's a miracle that this institution still exists and hasn't been conquered by the first enemy to sniff at it. Dr. Rachel says, wait, a hologram can't die? That chick is going to pass automatically? Why even bother with the academy then? Yeah, I don't get that. Why the holographic person would go to the academy at all. I mentioned that she's only 4 months old and she had the uploaded personality of a 17-year-old for some reason and all the awkwardness that comes with that. But they could have just uploaded her with the knowledge that she needed, like the Doctor did in Voyager. Like, yes, he evolved over the course of the show, but he had the base level medical information he was supposed to have day one, because that's what makes sense. I don't know. But it might be a situation like Data, to be fair. Data, they were worried about people in Starfleet being offended by an android coming in, taking an officer position, and giving them orders without having put in the work. So he chose to go to Starfleet Academy and graduate atop of his class, obviously, to put people at ease. Like, yeah, I went through the same work you guys did, even though I could have just downloaded the information or whatnot. So it could be a situation like that, to be fair. But it was performative for Data. It doesn't look like it's performative for the holographic person. It's not for social reasons like Data. It's bizarre, but, that's how it is. The next thing I want to talk about, it's going to be very, very brief. I just want to highlight that it's happening. The Artemis 2 mission looks like it is moving forward. So we've talked about this on the last few Ryder flights. The Artemis 2 mission is going forward. They're going to launch sometime in the next couple months, do a few maneuvers in Earth orbit, and then go to the moon, orbit the moon, and come back. It's the equivalent of Apollo 8 is the best way of putting it. I mean, it has some stuff from earlier Apollo missions, like the maneuvers in Earth orbit and whatnot, but it's most similar to Apollo 8, where they're just testing out everything before they eventually do send a manned mission to the surface of the moon itself. February 6th is the first launch date available, and it looks like they will probably reach that. They're confident, at least, that that will be a viable date, because Artemis 2 rollout began last Saturday, and they made it to the launch position. So Artemis 2 is currently where it needs to be to launch. So I see that as they're confident that it will launch on the 6th. It might not. There's always weather conditions to be worried about, but they don't roll things out without having a fair degree of confidence that it's going to be possible. You don't want that rocket to sit out there for 4 months or however long until the last April date. You want to roll it out when you have a fair confidence. So they're moving for it. It's very exciting to see. And I just want to point out this thing. So I've actually been to the Kennedy Space Center and saw one of these. These things are fucking insane. Look how big that thing is. They have to build the rockets inside that big building that they have there at NASA, which is a really cool building. And then they have to move everything to the launch site because they're not going to build the rocket at the launch site. And they bring the tower with it, which I think is really funny. But this thing, it's a juggernaut. It's the size of a fucking building just to move this spacecraft. And it goes very, very slow. I think it's like 7 kilometers an hour. I think I think that's way, way too fast. But regardless, it took them like 12 hours to move it the distance that they needed to get it to the launch site. It's just an impressive feat of engineering. Apparently, this was one of the hardest things that NASA ever had to design, making this thing possible. And it makes sense when you see this thing in person. It makes you believe that Transformers could be real, and like those Mortal Engines. If you guys have ever seen that movie, I haven't seen it, but for seeing that, or the John Carter movie where there's cities that move around the surface, you start to believe something like that is possible when you see something like this in real life. It moves very, very slowly, like I said, but it's still a feat of engineering. And NASA is actually live streaming the whole thing, which I think is pretty funny. There's just this shot here of Artemis. They're just doing this continuous live stream. This particular live stream has been going on for 12 hours, and they just got a shot of the Artemis just so people could watch. So if you want to silently watch Artemis for hours on end, you have the option. Because I know there are people out there who don't believe that the Artemis is real, that it's actually just a model or something like that. There are some people saying that it's actually a miniature, and then they ignore pictures like this where it's very clearly people are there, or it's Photoshop or something like that, ignoring that there's tons of footage of that day from everyday people and from NASA from countless angles. This rocket's fucking real. And yeah, NASA's just letting you live stream the whole thing to see that. But I wanted to highlight this as well. I found out about this week. Apparently, they're putting together a micro SD chip to go with Artemis 2 that will go in the Orion space capsule with the astronauts, and you can get your name written on it. It doesn't mean anything. It absolutely means nothing. It's not like it's being sent out in Voyager 1 or 2 out into the deep solar system, might come across aliens or something like that, which would be really cool. This is just a micro SD, and you can say, hey, my name went, a written version of my name or digital version of my name circled the moon. Isn't that so cool? They're letting you sign up to put your name on Artemis. I think it's weird. I think it's dumb, and you don't have to pay for it, so it's not like NASA's getting anything out of it. I did it, because why the fuck not? So if you guys are interested in getting your boarding pass, your fake boarding pass that puts your name on a micro SD card, you can do that by going to nasa.gov and send your name around the moon. They've already got 1.8 million boarding passes. I think this is a ridiculous story that they're doing this. It's kind of fun. It's kind of cutesy. I would have focused it more on like elementary school students or children or something like that. I think it would be better applied to something like that. But it's an interesting little aside that NASA's deciding to do this. So if you guys are interested, absolutely go get your boarding pass for Artemis 2, which looks like it will be launching, in my opinion, on schedule, hopefully on February 6th. I will be going live February 6th if that's the launch date. The actual launch date, whatever it is, I will be doing a special live stream just to react to it, and hopefully we get some good shots of it with the NASA live stream and stuff like that. And I hope you'll all tune into that as well. Legata says, a hologram without power, it's just inactive code, aka dead, inanimate, living, impaired. I don't know. I really couldn't tell you what happens to a hologram when they lose power. They just go to sleep, as I'd say what the best comparison would be. But are they actually alive? And you get into a lot more complicated territory with defining what sentience is, what life is, and stuff like that. Because I consider Data to be alive, and I consider the Doctor to be alive. So a holographic person could be alive, absolutely. But yeah, you don't want someone who can literally lose power and go to sleep on an instant's notice if the ship's hit just the right way in command of your vessel. It's so dumb to have a holographic person in the military. At least Data can operate on his own. He has independent power source and everything like that, where he's able to operate on his own. He's able to go down on away missions. He doesn't have sensitive equipment like a holo emitter. He has redundancies built into him and everything like that. This is just absolutely dumb. I would follow Data into battle. I would absolutely follow Data into battle. Dr. Rachel says, those are so cool. It just slowly moves the rocket in place. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Legatus, but sending a person to the moon, if today they still can't get through the Allen belt, but they could in the 60s with more powerful computers and better technology. What are you talking about? Are you talking about the Van Allen radiation belt? That's not a problem. You just go through it fast, and it's not a big deal. It's a matter of exposure. Just like doctors in an X-ray ward at a hospital, when you go to get an X-ray, you don't need any protective screening. You get the X-ray and you go. But the doctors in there, they go hide behind a wall or whatever, so they don't get exposure to the radiation. So it's the same principle. When you're in a spacecraft, protected, going through quickly, you get such a low dosage, like that person getting an X-ray, that it's not a big deal. But if you were to hang out in the Van Allen radiation belt, then you become a doctor in that situation where it's a dangerous thing to do. So yeah, the Van Allen radiation belt has been latched onto by conspiracy theorists for a century at this point, almost, and it's been blown out of proportion. It really isn't that big of a deal. You cut through it quickly and you're fine. It's just radiation. It's not going to stop anything, and there's no convection for the heat, so it's not like it's affecting the spacecraft's external temperature, really. So yeah, the Van Allen belt is absolutely nothing to be concerned about, and that's not why we haven't been back to the moon in 60 years or whatever it was. But yeah, the Van Allen radiation belt is really nothing to be concerned of. The Van Allen radiation belt. It's high radiation, but we deal with radiation every second of every day. One of the highest things that of natural radiation that we can get is taking an airplane. You get irradiated on an airplane. You get irradiated taking an X-ray. You get irradiated eating a banana. So radiation has become a scary word for people because of nuclear weapons and the stuff like Chernobyl and stuff like that. But radiation is a natural part of life. So a radiation belt, yes, it's in high enough doses, the Van Allen radiation belt can become a problem. But radiation isn't this scary end-all immediate cancer die situation. It's all a matter of dosage, just like heat, just like a candle. You can pass your finger over a candle and not get burned, or you can put your fingers in water and extinguish a candle. But if you were to put your hand on the candle and hold it there, you're going to get burned. It's the same idea. It's the exact same idea. They're just passing through it so quickly with water on their fingers, which is the outside of the spacecraft. So it's absolutely not a problem whatsoever. Van Allen radiation belt is a hyper focus on flat earthers love to talk about it all the time. Moon deniers, space is fake people. And it's honestly cherry picking these crazy. I'm not calling you that, Legatus. I'm just saying these people that I'm talking about, these crazy conspiracy theorists. They're very good at cherry picking science. They'll listen to a scientist say, "Hey, there's this thing called the Van Allen radiation belt, which could be a problem," but then they don't listen to those same scientists say, "This is how we solve that problem. We just go through it quickly." It's really nothing to be worried about. Bureaucratic entropy is why we haven't been back to the moon. That could absolutely be a contributing factor. The most accepted factor, and I 100% believe it, is just the matter of there's not a whole lot of point. We went up there several times with the Apollo missions, collected moon rots, but there's not much else we could do there. The technology that has been developed, though, is making a difference in that. We can legitimately start creating moon bases, and that's the next step of making moon missions viable and making them useful. There's just no point. What are we going to gather on the moon up until this point, up until moon bases and being able to stay there in longer periods? There's not a whole lot to explore. There's not valuable minerals to mine, really. So that's the main reason why we never went back after Apollo until now, because there's nothing to get there. There's absolutely nothing to get there. We have enough moon rocks that are still being cycled around through universities and whatnot to do research on. We have more than enough for what we've needed for the last 60 years. But now we have the technology. It's advanced enough that we can stay there. And that makes it important to go back again. So bureaucracy could absolutely have a major contributing factor, because NASA's budget has been slashed and slashed and slashed over the years. And they're a juggernaut that's slow moving and inefficient. NASA is incredibly inefficient. This Artemis 2 launch was supposed to happen originally in 2022, I believe is when it was. So they're at least 3 years behind, 4 years behind schedule, which is, it's unacceptable. I'm glad that's finally happening, but they're incredibly behind schedule. So bureaucracy is a absolutely contributing factor, but also just there's no need to go back to the moon up until now. And I think that's the bigger reason. People misunderstand why we haven't gone back to the moon, or why. There's this famous quote from a NASA scientist in the 90s saying we don't have the technology anymore to go back to the moon. Conspiracy theorists took that to mean it never existed, or we conveniently destroyed it and can't replicate it. That's just specifically talking about, hey, we stopped manufacturing Saturn V rockets, which is the rockets they used in the Apollo program, because we're not going back to the moon, so we're not making that technology, and we're not, we don't have the factories or the setup to make it. Just evaporated. We got rid of it because we were focusing on the shuttle program, so we needed different techniques, different spacecraft, different rockets, and everything like that. So the technology didn't physically exist, but it's not like we lost the blueprints on how to do it. Obviously shown by the SLS rocket that Artemis is going to be launching on. We have the technology still to build rockets capable of going to the moon, and we had this entire time from the 60s. And it's impressive what they did in the 60s with the, like Legatus was mentioning, with the type of computers that they had back then. It's insanely impressive that they were able to do that. I'm blown away. It's really a feat of humankind that we were able to accomplish what we did back in the 60s. But we didn't lose the capacity to make that technology. We just lost the need for that technology when we shifted to the shuttle program and there was no need to go back to the moon. So we stopped making the technology, but proved by the SLS when we were ready, we just did it again. And so, yeah, that NASA scientist from the 90s who said we destroyed the technology or lost the technology has been hyper-focused on by a lot of extreme conspiracy theorists to make a false narrative about the moon landings and space in general. And it's very sad to see how many people believe stuff like that. I know a lot of people on the internet who are actual flat earthers. I just got confirmation that someone I know is an actual flat earther. And that's so sad. It's very sad to me that there are actual flat earthers out there who don't believe you can fly from one continent to another in the southern hemisphere, and that just all the crazy stuff you have to believe to be a flat earther is just really, really disappointing. Legatus, yeah, I wanted a permanent moon base Alpha and the Eagles by Space 1999. I feel ripped off by that. Yeah, that would have been really nice, a moon base, but that is technology evolution. That is the difference between the 60s technology and modern technologies. They had the technology to go to the moon, but it took us this long to really get technology to stay on the moon. So people who talk about technology evolution not helping in the moon race is just bizarre to me. People argue that, yeah, isn't our technology better? Shouldn't we be able to do it better than they did? Yes, we can, but the reason why has changed. But yeah, what was it? Space Odyssey, 2001: A Space Odyssey. That was really a hopeful view of how fast technology would evolve over the 40 years that film came out in like the 60s, and it was set in 2001, so about 40 years. And yeah, they really thought we'd have moon bases and we're going out to Saturn by then. I wish it were true, just like you're saying with the Eagles by Space 1999. I really wish it was true, but unfortunately we didn't make it in time. Our technology didn't advance enough. Legatus, living impaired is how I will identify when I need to vote after I'm dead. Jesus. The people experience might be lost, Frank. What do you mean by the people experience might be lost? Oh, you mean like the experience of the individuals who built the Saturn V rocket and did NASA and stuff like that? Their experience has been replaced by inexperienced people. That is absolutely a contributing factor, and that probably made building the SLS rocket more difficult. Because, yeah, those people age out, they retire, they're replaced, they die, anything like that. So that could absolutely be something that we lost and have to rebuild, retrain people on. And, yeah, that's something that's entirely legitimate. Not a conspiracy that we never actually went to the moon or whatnot, so we had to pretend that we didn't have the capacity to go anymore because we happened to destroy everything. That's not what happened. But, yeah, people losing their experience, that's absolutely legitimate. All right, the next thing, our next topic, is one that Adam talked about briefly on the Daily Dive. I watched part of it. We're not going to go into as much detail on him as he did, but there's Doctor Who news, and I can't let Doctor Who news slip me by. From IGN, we have, it wasn't a better show with more money. Doctor Who director reflects on Disney's ditched funding deal and admits something went wrong. There were lots of areas you could point fingers at. I think the biggest person to point fingers at is Krusty T. Davies, his writing, his show running, his direction for the franchise when he took over with the Disney Plus deal after Jodie Whittaker left the franchise is the biggest reason why something went wrong. But there are absolutely many areas that you can put your fingers at. Disney's involvement, we don't know how much they had an influence over the quality of the stories during the Shudigawa era, but it is interesting to see Peter Hoare come out and talk about he directed some of Doctor Who, Daredevil, The Last of Us. In Doctor Who, he directed some good Doctor Who, some Matt Smith stories, like A Good Man Goes to War, which is just a great episode. And then he turned around and directed The Robot Revolution and Lucky Day from Shooty Season 2. Those are two of the worst Doctor Who episodes ever. And it just goes to show you, director is only as good as his script. That is something that I firmly believe in because there's so much variety and quality. A director can be great at cinematography, but the final product is really representative of the quality of the script. A good director can improve a script, but it can't replace a good script. And this is just a good example of it. He doesn't go into any specifics about what went wrong or anything like that. He just is disappointed to see that Disney throwing money at a problem didn't fix the problems from the Jodie Whittaker era. So that's all we're going to talk about it here. It could have been better with money, but more importantly, it could have been better with more talented people who had better priorities. And that's the bigger problem. Throwing money at it didn't solve that problem. The people were still there. The people behind those decisions are the real problem. But it is nice to see that the people making Doctor Who are admitting that there is a problem. That's the best thing to see about this, because throughout the Jodie Whittaker era and the initial parts of the Shudigawa era, the stands and the people making Doctor Who were in absolute denial that there was a problem with the ratings, that there was a problem with anything, like Russell T Davies saying, oh, why is everyone caring about our overnight and 7-day consolidated numbers? Those don't matter. It's only the 28-day numbers that matter. And then the 28-day numbers came out and they barely moved from the 7-day numbers at all. So yeah, these excuses that they've made over these years are finally starting to erode, and they're just admitting the truth that there is a problem, that the Disney Plus deal didn't fix anything. In fact, I think it made things worse. Something went wrong. Yes, many, many things went wrong. At the end of the day, I'm just excited that they're saying quiet part out loud. They're finally admitting that we were right. I mentioned this earlier in a different discussion at the beginning of the stream. There are so many times where I say something, Adam says something, and just people in our sphere say something, and we're called crazy, we're called evil, we're called stupid, all these hateful names for predicting something. And then a few years later, they just come out and say exactly what we said. And it's like, oh, wow, that is true. I wish somebody would have told me that this was the case 5 years ago. And then Adam and I are here like, yeah, we fucking did. And you called us psychopaths. But this is another example of that. We've said that there was a problem with Doctor Who for a long time, and now the people making Doctor Who are admitting that there's an actual problem and something needs to be fixed. Doctor Who cannot endure the way it is. As you see, they haven't even confirmed season 3, because yes, they had to restart the numberings for the Shudigawa era. I don't know how that's going to make sense going back to the BBC exclusively or anything like that. We don't have a streaming deal for New Who at all. It left HBO Max. It's without a home. It's orphaned. Where's it going to go for streaming? So much is in the air, and it's just further proof of what I and many others like me have said for years. Doctor Who is eviscerated. It's been destroyed. It needs to go off the air for a little while, unlike what the actress who played Susan in season 1 of Classic Who has said recently, or the first few seasons of Classic Who, that BBC has an obligation of fans to continue. No, the BBC has an obligation of fans to end it, to put everyone out of their misery, put it on the shelf for a while. It's time for Wilderness Years Part 2, and wait for good creators with good financial backing and a studio who's willing to let them do what must be done to bring back Doctor Who. In 5-10 years, a studio that's willing to let a new showrunner say everything after Peter Capaldi or the 50th anniversary or wherever you want to pick it is decanonized. We're picking up there. That's not going to happen in the current world. So they have an obligation to fans to let that happen. And that's just where we're at right now. But this is an exciting thing to see. I'm not going to read through the whole article like Adam did. Definitely go check out the VOD for the Daily Dive if you're interested in a full breakdown of this article. I was honestly worried about finding enough things to talk about today for this stream. I always worry about it when I come up to it because I talk about things that are different than most other people talk about on daily shows like Geeks and Gamers or Adam the Renaissance Nerd. But when I started looking for things about an hour before I started the show, I found enough, and I was still worried about how much time it would take. But we're an hour and 20 minutes into the stream, and we still have a little bit more to go, and it's always great to see. It's a good problem to have too many things to talk about, and we still have one more topic before we get into the chat choose your own adventure segment. Dr. Rachel said, if I had $1 for every time Jed and or I were proved right about something that we were called previously crazy for, I could comfortably retire. Yeah, that is 100% true, and it's sad to see. I'm wrong sometimes. Obviously, I was wrong about Avatar 2. I thought it wouldn't do as well as it did. I thought it would still do $1 billion, but I didn't think it would be, the new highest grossing film of all time at the time. But I was wrong about that. But I wasn't wrong about Avatar 3. That film is not doing as well. That film is performing like I thought the second one would, because the curiosity factor is gone. The 10-year hiatus, or whatever, the 13, 14-year hiatus between the first one and the second one didn't apply between the second and third. So there wasn't a want for it. There wasn't a drive. There wasn't a FOMO, because these movies don't have any spoilers in it worth feeling FOMO over. They're shallow. And yes, they're pretty. They're pretty as all hell, but they don't have substance to them. So Avatar 3, people were saying that it was going to be in contention for another one of the highest grossing films of all time, that it would get $2 billion in the bag easily. It is run out of steam at $1.3 billion. I doubt it's going to make it to 1.5. If it does, it'll only barely get there. It's dead in the water. It hasn't broken even. These films are too expensive to make. James Cameron himself said it had to be the 5th highest grossing film of all time to break even. That's roughly the $2 billion mark to break even. He's even admitted this last week or two that he might need to look for other financial sources to fund a potential 4th movie. It's got to be a bad failure when even Disney admits, yeah, let's not do that again, because we lost money on it. So, I was called crazy about that in the lead up. That for the third one, I said, yes, it's going to do more than $1 billion, but it's not going to do as well as people think. I don't think it's going to hit the $2 billion mark. People called me crazy. It's like, you're betting against James Cameron. You're so dumb. And I was right. Wrong about the second one, but right about the third one. It's always nice to see. Can I get paid for being right, like Rachel's talking about? I could absolutely just live off of being right. I could. Which would be nice right now, because the job search is not going well. I've gotten 1 callback in 300 applications. So, yeah, it'd be nice to find a new source of revenue. Hail Wiley Dave over on the Kick side. The reviewers always give the Blu-rays low rating, but regular people reviews were good. This release has a lot of bad reviews. Oh, yeah, there's a comment before that I didn't see. First he said, hey, Jed, great to have you here, Wiley Dave. Welcome in. I might have to keep my Tom Baker Season 2 DVDs. That's totally fine, man. I appreciate the Blu-ray comes out tomorrow, but people who reviewed it early are saying that they used an AI filter, which caused a lot of defects in the show. Okay. Yeah, if there were problems with it, absolutely keep it, man. I appreciate the DVDs and love what you send me. But yeah, prioritize keeping what you need so that your collection is intact. Dash over on YouTube says, ironically, they've strip mined the Avatar franchise to exhaustion. Yeah, there wasn't much to mine, but they mined what they could out of it. I know people are enjoying the video game now that there's finally a third-person mode for it, which I don't like first-person in general. Just in general, I'm not very much for it. I don't like it. I prefer third-person in general. But I accept that there were first-person shooters that people love, like Call of Duty back in the day. Just wasn't my thing. Halo just wasn't my thing. Happy for you guys if you loved it. Some things just aren't for everyone, obviously. But when you're making a franchise where the playable character is iconic, like Indiana Jones, like Avatar, the way that they look is very iconic, unfortunately. You want to be able to see that character. If you're making a customizable character for a game, you want to be able to see that character. But when you're forced into first person, that makes that whole excitement about seeing Indiana Jones. I'm controlling Indiana Jones. I'm going to play as Indiana Jones. Or I'm going to spend a few hours just designing my character perfectly. And then you're in first person, and you're just like, okay, I wasted my time. Oh, this isn't that cool. So I'm glad to see that game is finally figured out. Yeah, people want to see the iconic playable character. Isn't that just crazy? And now it's starting to do fairly well. Funny how that works out. Again, a situation where I was right and I was told crazy that Avatar is just so successful that it doesn't need a third person mode to be a successful video game. And isn't it made by Ubisoft as well, that Tales of Pandora or whatever? So probably not a great game, but who knows? I know people are enjoying them. The last topic I want to do before we dive into Chat Choose Your Own Adventure is a segment that I started last week with highlighting an independent game that I was very excited for. Last week I talked about Tail's Edge, and I enjoyed that very, very much. So I want to talk about a new game that I'm looking forward to this year that not a lot of people are talking about. Sometimes there'll be AAA games in these segments whenever I decide to do them, AAA, indies, whatever game, and it's just going to mainly be about games that not a lot of people are talking about. So in a segment like this in future, I won't be talking about Resident Evil probably. I won't be talking about the Lego Batman, both games that I am looking forward to over the course of this year. It'll be mainly games that people aren't aware of or just don't have the buzz that they're due, in my opinion. So this is just a quick little, hey, keep an eye out for this game. I think it looks really cool. We're going to be talking about Amphileon. We're going to watch the trailer for it as well. Amphileon, hunted on a frozen planet, astronaut Arini, I don't know, must brave rugged landscapes and shifting realities to rescue her wounded partner Thomas. This action-packed sci-fi adventure blends exploration, traversal, and tense stealth gameplay. So it's not prioritizing shooter or anything like that. It is more a traversal system, and I love traversal games like this, especially sci-fi games, and I think it looks really cool. And with the stealth aspect, this is right up my alley. So we're going to talk about the trailer. I don't know if they're going to show any gameplay in this one. If they aren't, we're going to watch a gameplay trailer as well, because there's some really cool stuff that I've been seeing from the gameplay. We're going to press play on this, pause it periodically for transformation purposes, and please let me know if you have any trouble seeing it or hearing it.
Hello?
I think these graphics look great. Yes, this is probably cinematic, so in-game it's going to look a little bit different, but when we get to actually seeing gameplay footage, it's not that far off, so it's not a drastic difference between cutscene or pre-rendered cinematics, trailers, or anything like that in gameplay.
That wasn't in my head. There is something here.
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a horror aspect to it. There are probably aliens on this frozen world. There might be shooter aspects dealing with those aliens, but I don't think there's going to be other people to shoot.
Thomas.
Mission Control. The Hope 1 shuttle has crashed on Persephone.
So the description didn't describe it very well, but you will be controlling both of these protagonists, both Thomas and Arini, and swapping back between their gameplay. I don't know if you're going to be able to choose or if it's going to be due to timeline or storylines where it forces you to go one way or another. I don't know exactly how it's going to be, but you will be playing as both of them.
I lost contact with Dr. Montclair.
I also like that it doesn't look like it's a romance story. It just looks like two people who are on the same crew, who were separated after they crashed, and they're just trying to save each other, trying to find each other. And I appreciate that. I don't think we need a romance element in a situation like this.
Hang on, Thomas. I got this.
Oh, shit.
I'm not alone.
What the hell?
So yeah, there's no way to really fight those monsters that are being shown, so it's absolutely prioritizing stealth mechanics, and I think this looks great. I love games like this. If anyone's played Deliver Us the Moon, which is a great little puzzle game that takes place on the moon, the sequel Deliver Us Mars is awful. Do not play that one, because they try to go more into the story angle and make 40-year-old children. It's very, very weird looking. The story's terrible, but Deliver Us the Moon, great little puzzle game. Not a whole lot of story, just fun gameplay, fun little puzzles. Combining that with something like Prey or Dead Space without the shooter angle, just more horror angle of those games, is a great combination in my mind.
It's stalking me. Crap, no! Oh, no. No. Mission.
So they are showing gameplay in this, and there's going to be a lot of traversal, some Tomb Raider reboot style climbing and whatnot, or Jedi Fallen Order sliding, climbing mechanics and stuff like that. And yeah, it looks like a little
Control. Anybody copy? Holy shit. What are you?
So that is Amphileon. I just don't see a whole lot of people talking about it, but this is a game right up my alley. I will absolutely be streaming it when it eventually comes out. I think it's planned for end of 2026. There's not an official release date as far as I'm aware, but whenever it does come out, I'll stream it, and I think I'm going to have a hell lot of fun. If you're interested, go check it out on Steam. Wishlist it if you're liking what you're seeing when you go over there. But yeah, definitely want to highlight games like this. I want to highlight more independent stuff, or just stuff that isn't being in the mainstream eye, because last year was a incredible year for independent gaming, with Clair Obscur winning, Silksong being beloved, and there's debate on what Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 counts as, but a lot of people enjoyed it. I didn't play it, but a lot of people did enjoy it. That the year was drowned out sometimes, though, with the AAAs. Like, a lot of normies just look at AAA and don't see anything else. We're finally getting away from that. We're finally seeing indies getting the attention that they deserve, and I want to continue that into 2026. 2025 was immense progress. If you just looked at 20 AAAs from last year, you would have thought that it was an absolute horrible year for gaming. But when you bring in indie, it's one of the best years in gaming we had in the last decade or so, I'd say. Or at least of the 2020s, I think last year was the best. And I want to keep moving that forward, because there are great games like this, like Tales Edge. And I have more that I'll highlight over the next few months, as it makes sense to have a segment for it. And some stuff I might be working on. That's in this independent sphere that I think a lot of people can enjoy. Gaming is not dead. AAA is a rotting, zombified corpse that still makes billions of dollars, but it's on its way out. But gaming as a whole isn't in the mire as much as most people seem to believe. Wiley Dave over on Kick says Tremors in space. Yeah, you could put it that way. Absolutely. I've never seen Tremors myself, but I have seen the monsters or whatever in that, and it does kind of look like those monsters we saw in the trailer. Could absolutely put it that way. I hope you guys enjoyed that segment, enjoyed that quick little highlight. I didn't want it to go on for terribly long, not be a major cornerstone of the show, but just highlighting some independent work out there, introducing people to things that they might not otherwise have seen. But that's where we're at for the news and discussion topics. We're going to dive into chat, choose your own adventure, right after a word from our sponsor, Plotter. This video is sponsored by Plotter. Every writer knows the drill. Staring at a blank page, characters ghosting you mid-plot, timelines unraveling like a bad sweater. That endless loop of what happens next, sucking the joy out of your story. I lived it. Outlines and chaos, competing storylines driving me mad. For the longest time, my notes were thick, blocked-out paragraphs, and my outlines were never-ending bullet points that stretched for more pages than my first drafts. Then I found Plotter, my plotting lifeline. Visual timelines that snap into place, drag-and-drop scenes to tame the wildest arcs, character sheets that keep everyone on track. It turned my latest novel, a 200,000-word juggernaut with multiple character perspectives and solar systems worth of lore, into an easy-to-understand, trackable project, complete with the series Bible, multi-track storylines, and lore documents that make world-building a breeze. And check out their latest feature, a seamless note-taking system for all those story and character ideas that don't have a home yet. Available for free to all users of the Plotter app. For pro users, your notes and files will automatically sync across devices with cloud storage. If you're tired of the plot purgatory, use my link or scan the QR code to get Plotter for life with a single payment of $150. Your epic won't write itself, but with Plotter it'll flow like never before. Link in the description. Let Plotter help you conquer your stories. Well, welcome to another Chat Choose Your Own Adventure story where you, the chat, and I will craft these short stories and just have a hell of a lot of time making these ridiculous stories. Using a combination of dice rolls and super chats, we'll be filling in the gaps of this story. And if we hit a super chat threshold, I will be scheduling another stream later on this week where I will actually write out these stories. And my incredible wife, Dr. Rachel, in the chat will be doing some exclusive artwork for it. She did some great stuff for the last story Forge we did for the werewolf story, Karma Sutra, or what was it? Karma Wolf? I can't remember what we ended up calling it. I think it was Karma Sutra. I think it was a pun on karma and the Kama Sutra. But that was a lot of fun writing that, and her artwork for it is absolutely incredible. Both that short story and her artwork are available to members of the YouTube channel. Just become a member, and you'll get a link to where all of those stories are currently and where the future ones will be as well. For this, just going over the rules. In the dice rolling segment, the highest super chat starting at $1 can override any dice roll. So if I roll for genre, for example here, if I roll genre and get mystery and thriller, but you don't want to write a story with me about mystery and thriller, highest super chat starting at $1 can pick a different genre. And whenever you're doing that, it doesn't have to be anything on this list that I have here. If you can pick your own genre, throw it at me, whatever you want to do, and we will do it. And that's the thing with the dice rolling segment here. But there's also some free spaces in all of these different categories for genre. If we hit parody, for example, the chat will get to pick for free. But if there's no consensus, a super chat can override the chat on what type of parody is it. Is it a Star Wars parody? Is it a Lord of the Rings parody? Whatever type of parody it is, the chat will be able to choose for that. And chat choice will also be a free space for that as well. So wanted to give some stuff out for free as well. So let's dive into it. And as a reminder, for the donations, they can be super chats on the YouTube side, of course, but they can also be subscriptions or gifted subs over on the Kick side as well. Those absolutely count in overriding super chats or later on during the twist segment. But of course, I've also included a link on both chats for my stream elements. If you guys don't want to give Kick or YouTube any money, which I totally understand, there's a direct tipping link, which goes directly to me. I get all the money for that, and those will absolutely count as well. So on the YouTube side, that link is pinned in the chat. So I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. So let's dive into it. For genre, our options today are science fiction, fantasy, mystery thriller, romance, parody, and chat choice. So I'm going to roll a dice to pick which one it will be. Super chats, of course, can override that, or it'll get a free space in the chat. Free space in the chat will choose regardless. For lead character, we have bounty hunter, model, narcoleptic, dinosaur, homeless person, and chat choice. For setting, we have present day, past, future, non-human world, alternate universe, and chat choice. For theme or style, we have Christmas, erotica, redemption, bravery, western, or chat choice. For wildcard, we have a toad, gold, cross, race car, zombie, or chat choice. So the wildcard is just something entirely random that I will have to incorporate into the story and make it work. It could, if it's your chat choice, it could be the most random thing you can absolutely think of, and we'll just have to make it work. But let's start out with genre. Our options for genre are science fiction, fantasy, romance, thriller, romance, or mystery thriller, romance, parody, or chat choice. Let's see what the dice gods have in store for us, or what the chat, super chat gods have in store for us. We've got a 3, so it is a mystery thriller. We've never gotten a mystery thriller on these before. That'll be interesting. How are we going to go with that? For lead character, we have bounty hunter, model, narcoleptic, dinosaur, homeless person, or chat choice. What do we got here? We've got a model. A mystery about a model. Definitely can go for some cliche easy stories for something like that. Like a model gets murdered or something and a private eye has to investigate it. Classic stuff there. Setting, we have present day, past, future, non-human world, alternate universe, or chat choice. We got 2 for that as well, so it's in the past. This is really setting up to be a very traditional private eye noir story. I should add in noir as a setting. Next week I'll add in noir as an actual theme. But for themes, we have Christmas, erotica, redemption, bravery, western, or chat choice. I might need to take erotica out of there because I don't know what I'm going to fucking do if it ever lands on erotica. 1. All right. Christmas has to be involved in some way. Wild card, we have Toad, Gold, Cross, Race Car, Zombie, or Chat Choice. What do we got here? We've got a 3. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there is a ice cream truck outside of my house, and it's very, very loud right now. Hope it's not coming through to you guys, but it would be kind of funny if it was. Cross. Okay, well, Cross and Christmas, that's going to go together very, very easily. Wiley Dave, no, you can't hear. Okay. It would have been kind of funny if you guys could. So for right now, we have a mystery thriller about a model set in the past during Christmas with a cross involved. That's going to be very easy. This is a very traditional story, very much something you'd see from the 1940s or something like that. What is his name? Dick. I can't remember. The one that Picard cosplays as a lot in TNG. But this is a classic noir mystery. If you guys don't like that it's a classic mystery, if you want to throw a curveball my way, once again, high super chat or donation starting at $1 can override any of these individual dice rolls and make it whatever you want. Like the lead character one, if you don't want it to be about a model, high super chat starting at $1 can make any protagonist. It doesn't have to be on this list whatsoever. It could be something as random as a bank teller, and it is entirely up to you. And you can also, high super chat starting at $5 can introduce a twist at any time. So when I'm actually writing out, planning it out, figuring it out, and you drop a $5 super chat and be like, hey, I want a giant Daisy Ridley tentacle monster to show up and stab some people with her pointy suckers. I'll have to figure out how to make that work in the story and try to still make it a good story. That is the point, as this can't just be, oh, this is kind of dumb fun, whatever, throw it out there, it doesn't matter. I'm still trying to make it good. I still want to make it a good, well-written story, and that's the challenge of it. That's the fun part of it. Frank says, erotica probably needs some fetishes to roll up with it. Yeah. Had some fetishes into the wild card, maybe, because that's what it was with the ball gag when we did the first Chat Choose Your Own Adventure. There was a ball gag in there, and I had to include a ball gag. That was wild. Dr. Rachel, man, I really wanted a dinosaur instead of a model. Yeah, imagine a dinosaur in a mystery thriller set in the past during Christmas. That would be fucking wild. And if you guys want to see that, high super chat starting at $1. Let's start crafting out this story. I'm going to put these notes over here so it can be pinned. Once again, we are sponsored by Plotter for my channel in general, but they didn't tell me to do the stream. They didn't tell me to use Plotter for it. It just made the most sense. It's a program that I actually use for writing my own books, and the way that you can, craft out these stories, pin notes, and everything like that. It just made a lot of sense working with what my objectives were for this segment. I doubt they even know that I'm using Plotter during these segments, but this gives you guys a little taste about what it's like to use Plotter. All right, theme style, Christmas. And cross. Okay, so what I really like to do is craft, what is it? 3 chapters, maybe 4 chapters with 3 bullet points each about what the story is going to be. So what are we going to do for this story? So you bring that up. Hopefully you guys can see it. Yep. All right, we have a mystery thriller about a model in the past during Christmas. And there's got to be a cross involved. So the obvious thing to do, like I said earlier, have a private detective who's approached about the murder of a model during Christmas, and he tries to solve the solve the model's murder, and eventually does. That's the clear-cut, easy solution. I want to try to find a couple ways to make it a little bit more unique than that. We have a super chat from Judas Goats Barbecue, which is just a phenomenal name. I don't know if that's your display name or just your @ because of course YouTube only makes the @ available, but $10 super chat from Judas saying, I agree with the change to a dinosaur. So we're going to make it a fucking dinosaur. Now, I will, because this was way more generous than you needed to be, Judas, to achieve that dice roll change, I'll give you this thought for free. All right, we're changing it into a dinosaur. Dinosaur, and I want to switch it on here so I remember to keep model for the future and get rid of dinosaur. I'll let you have this for free, Judas. Judas, do you want the private investigator to be a dinosaur, or do you want the victim to be a dinosaur? We can do it either way. It's entirely up to you. Would you rather this noir style story be about a detective who's a dinosaur who can talk, or a detective finds out about a murdered dinosaur that he has to solve the murder of? Either could be really funny, so I'll let you choose that, Judas. I appreciate the donation, Judas. Well, this is definitely a much more interesting story now than what we had previously. All right, so mystery thriller, dinosaur, past Christmas cross. Or it could be an alternate history. Oh, the detective? All right, we're going to go with the detective. All right. The dinosaur is the detective. I don't want to go with the T-Rex. Judas, when it comes to anything about the dinosaur and you don't like what I'm doing with it, just tell me and we'll change it to the way you want to go for it because of that donation. But I don't want to go with the T-Rex because that's kind of cliche to just always do a T-Rex. I'm kind of thinking about doing a... I need to look up what they're called. But the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park who killed Nedry, those the venom spitting ones with the big wreaths around their heads. Detective Dinosaur, like Detective Pikachu. Is it better than Detective Pikachu? It's an interesting idea, absolutely. So yeah, I'm thinking about, I need to look up what type of dinosaur that was, but I'm imagining a dinosaur like that with bespectacled glasses just sitting in a chair in a classic Private Eye's office from that era. I don't know if you like the sound of that, Judas. We can make it a T-Rex if you want a T-Rex or anything like that, but I'm going to look up what species that is. What species killed Nedry? What species of dino killed Nedry? I'm reading the book right now, but I couldn't tell you. And that scene actually did happen where Nedry died, and I don't remember what type of dinosaur it was. It's a Dilophosaurus. I hope I pronounced that correctly. A Dilophosaurus. I'm going to keep that note up so I can copy and paste how you spell that whenever I need to. Wiley Dave says, yep, a Dilophosaurus. All right, so I'm going to go with Dilophosaurus, but Judas, of course, you can override anything I have to say. Judas, go barbecue. You like the sound of it? Okay, perfect. So, all right, now who's dead? I'm still imagining him being the one dino person who just loves solving mysteries. It's not like a dino world where it's our world just inhabited by dino people. I like the idea of him being unique and being confused when people react to him being a dinosaur. Like, completely normal. Yeah, I'm a fucking dinosaur. So fucking what? Get over it. All right, so who's gonna... what's the mystery gonna be? A stolen fossil? And he takes it way more seriously than everybody else. That would be really funny as well. I just need the hook. As soon as I get the hook, this is gonna go very, very easily. But the hook, what's the hook gonna be? What's the crime? I'm not gonna do global warming, even though that kind of might be a little funny. I think I'm gonna go with the missing bone from a stolen bone from the Natural History Museum, and he's taking it way more seriously than everybody else, and he's just hunting these Indiana Jones type thieves who are stealing fossils and shit like that for private collections. I think we're gonna go with that. And it's gonna be a religious dinosaur. He's gonna go pray in a church. This is so dumb, but I love it. All right. Office setup. We're gonna have Dilophosaur. Oh, I want to place plain text. Dilophosaurus private detective in his office. I'm going to add in classic noir voiceover. Wiley Day says, looking for the Barbasol can, a Nedry stole. That's actually a great reference. Looking for the Barbican. Ooh, that makes it into a little bit of a parody of Jurassic Park, and I'm okay with that in this setting. It just says it has to be in the past, and Jurassic Park is in the 90s, so that counts as in the past. Dr. Rachel said, I've got a bone to pick with you, Detective Dino to the Thief, probably. I like that, too. We got to at least include the Barbasol can, Nedry stole, absolutely. Got to include that. The wild card is the only other item in the dice rolls that I'm not super on board with, because it's already Christmas, so we're already getting the cross. So it's a wild card that isn't actually adding anything. It's an obvious wild card that already existed. But classic noir voiceover. Paleontologist. I'm misspelling this badly. Woman. We're gonna call her Dr. I need to limit my Jurassic Park references. There's going to be a ton of them in here already, so I was going to go with Dr. Grant or something. What's another? I'm going to go with Geller. We'll mix it up and do a Friends reference instead. Dr. Geller arrives, begs for help. A rare... We'll go with raptor because it's easy. A rare raptor fossil was stolen from her museum. Misspelled that, of course, as well. Without spell check, I'd be fucked. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Science is not popular. Can't even get a news story. What's something that engine. I'm not saying a Native American slur. I'm saying engine as in Jurassic Park. I think I'm gonna call him Barbasol. What do you guys think about the Dilophosaurus private detective being called Barbasol? Like, Detective Barbasol, please help me. I'm gonna call him Barbasol right now. Detective Barbasol would care as the only living dinosaur. He takes the case. I'm absolutely going to include that line, Dr. Rachel, where he says, I got a bone to pick with you. I have to include it. Investigation. Goes to museum. Looking for clues. Has a sad moment looking at all the other fossils. Looking at the other dinos. All right. What do we got? I just don't need an E there. Not a whole lot of evidence, but he needs to find a clue here. Clue that can lead him to the thieves. What are we gonna find? And I forgot to mention it earlier, the Super Chat threshold to get the scheduled Story Forge stream, where I actually write out the short story and Dr. Rachel does some exclusive artwork for it that will be available for members after that stream, is $100. So if this stream makes $100 in Super Chats, we'll schedule that other stream and we'll make this story a reality. So if you're interested in, drop a Super Chat, drop a donation, drop a gifted sub over on Kick, and we will make it happen. All right, goes to the museum, sad looking at the other dinosaurs. And the fat museum director angry at, what did I say, Geller for bringing in on the case. Police are looking. Judah says thumb. Sorry, that was the typo. Your comment was the typo, or was I putting in a typo? Because I probably put in a few typos. It's entirely possible. All right. Police are looking. Lets him investigate. Just to add in a little bit of conflict. Lets him investigate. And I spelled the guy wrong, so I did. Fat gut. Maybe fat gut makes more sense. Fat gut museum director. We'll go with that. That actually still works. It still makes sense. I am a real writer, guys. I have whiskey that I'll drinking along with this, and this is real whiskey. This is some Scottish whiskey that a viewer of the channel, Algorithms of Strong, actually sent me from Scotland. It's Edredour. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, and I apologize, but this shit is smooth as hell. And, you know, you're not a real writer unless, you know, have a little whiskey with it. Maybe a pipe if you're feeling fancy. A typewriter if you're feeling very fancy. God. God, that shit's good. All right. My word thumb was the type. Okay. But let's see, what do we have here? Let's investigate. I need to find the clue. Could it be the cross to be a little bit more? Oh. All right. This I need permission from the chat to do, because it could make sense and incorporate the wild card in a different way other than Christmas, but I don't want to offend anybody. It could be that there was a cross calling card left near where the fossil was stolen from as a calling card for an anti-dinosaur religious group. That's why I'm being very careful with it. I don't want to offend anyone, but there are a lot of religious people who don't believe in dinosaurs because they're not in the Bible or stuff like that. That is a widespread belief, and so someone stealing what they see as fake fossils because of that, I could see as being true. I'm not going to have any anti-religious sentiment in it or anything like that, or some slurs or anything like that. Just, it does make sense that some extremist people like that might do something like this, but I won't do it if the chat's not interested. While you do that, I'm going to add in some Christmassy stuff. Yep, Judas, true, the creationist. Yeah, and I don't want to offend any of the creationists or anything like that. I just think it does make sense in the context of the story. Some of the dinos are dressed up for Christmas to try and novelize try to make a novelty. We'll go with that. And I spelled make wrong. Yes, I am a professional writer, chat. I've actually written 6 books. Published several of them. Make a novelty of the dinos and try to draw a crowd. Giant T-Rex has a Santa beard and hat. makes Barbasol even sadder. Alright, so yeah, just seeing dinos being made into a gimmick or something like that. Dr. Rachel says, somebody probably thinks the detective is a demon and uses a cross to ward him off, or go goofy like that scene with Benny from The Mummy. That is a really good moment as well in that. I think that would be funny. Wiley Dave, I believe they made up dinosaurs to hide the finds of giants and dragons. Game of Thrones tells more truth. So that's what I'm meaning, is that there are people who legitimately believe that, and I don't want to offend them by saying that this dinosaur fossil was stolen by someone like that. I'm going to include it for right now because it doesn't seem to bother Judas, and he's the one donating. But if anybody has a problem with that, I can try to find a way around that, and I will include the Power of Christ Compels You vampire scene with a cross later on. I think that would be fucking hilarious. Finds a cross calling card with, just to make it unique, I'm going to add in Da Vinci Vitruvian Man. I know I butchered all of that spelling. Da Vinci. I hope that's right. Unique. Needs to research. All right, I'm gonna have him do the research here. I'm gonna have sexy Dr. Geller with him. Go to library, researching symbol with Dr. Geller. Barbasol checks history. Because he lived through most of the history, I'm going to have him be as, ancient or whatnot. Like, he lived the 65 million years. Actually, should he be a scientific creation? I don't know. But he's connected to the past, we'll say that. Geller checks recent news stories. I don't want them to both find what they need, especially not at the same time. That is very coincidental. And this is, a noir. They're not going to have computer searches or anything like that. So them finding, even just finding anything is going to be a lot of time. Next day, bring their findings together. Symbol is an ancient one used to represent the superiority is the wrong word. The right of man to rule this world. That might be even more so in the wrong direction, but we'll go with that right now. Is man's domain. Gets it, but is sad. So he's getting some of the philosophy out of his symbol research. Connected to extreme religious cults. Geller found references to the symbol at many evolution and I'm going to just do dinosaur even though I mean paleontological dinosaur protests and thefts. Looks like it's a religious group that takes creationism pretty far. And seeks to destroy symbols of alt beliefs. We'll try that. So they're working together on this. Judah says, I don't think it would be offensive to have the creationists steal it. I'm Catholic and we have a lot of unusual relics. They once claimed to have the relic of Christ. What? The Catholic Church once claimed to have Christ's circumcised foreskin? I was not expecting to read that sentence, alright? You can never be prepared for Jesus' foreskin. Your brain just isn't ready for it. Jeez. Oh my god. I love it, though. I'm going to include a Christmas miracle. I just decided, but... alright, yeah, I'm trying not to be offensive by it. Wow. But yeah, I'm gonna have stick with the creationist story. All right, so that's chapter 1. I'm still planning on 3 chapters being a good amount. What is that gif, Wiley Dave? I can't quite see it. Huh? I said, huh? Yeah. Apparently, the Catholic Church once claimed to have this is foreskin. I love that piece of trivia. I will be back putting that in my back pocket and using it to shock people when the situation demands it. All right, so we have the dinosaur detective. He's brought this case by the sexy Dr. Geller. The honkat, yeah, it is Dr. Geller goes to investigate, finds the symbol, researches the symbol, finds out it's connected to creationist cults who go take things way, way too far, and they're stealing evidence, relics, or anything like that from competing belief styles to either destroy it or disprove it. How do we want to do this? Need the investigation part of it to be good, because this is a mystery. All right, I think that's enough Dr. Geller for right now. Geller goes back to work. Barbasol goes to a church that still uses the symbol. Watches a Christmas Eve service. Talks to the pastor afterwards. All right. Should I have the power of Christ compels you here with the pastor or when he confronts the cult? I think it'd be better with the cult. Very nice to each other. Normal pastor. Yeah, I'm not going to do it here. Normal pastor. Shocked to see evidence of a group using the symbol. This is going to be a fairly thin mystery, just partially because there's not a whole lot of time. It is a short story, so he's going to kind of happen to get things thrown into his lap, unfortunately. Shocked to see people using the symbol for theft. There's an ex-pastor of that church who preached similar beliefs. Might know more. Yeah, I doubt these people would be trying to disprove the skeletons. I think they're just more interested in destroying the fossils. Why didn't they already destroy it by this point? I know they're big and whatnot. A raptor is fairly large. I mean, size of a person, roughly 6 feet tall or something like that, if I remember correctly. They're smaller than people think from like Jurassic Park, I believe. But so they'll want to research it. So we'd be looking for a secret laboratory, a laboratory that's set up to disprove these fossils. All right, might know more. Who would know more? Goes to the ex-pastor. Freaks out. I'll have him do it. Freaks out. Uses a cross on Dino Demon. The power of Christ compels you. Barbasol's obviously unaffected. Barbasol unaffected. The pastor is living in squalor. I think that might be too much. A department store. Struggling to make ends meet. Can't afford to risk new life with protests. Didn't join cult, but knows where they hang out. Been to a few meetings. Leaving pastor. I'll have the pastor rant. Pastor rant about Barbasol's evil nature. Alright, that's a lot more in a bullet point than I'm used to, than I normally do. I'll add in a few so that there's a bit of an investigation. Knows a few places where they hang out. To decide there's an abandoned warehouse, church, and they wouldn't be hanging out at a bar or a coffee house. Let's say hangout spot. It might be a coffee house. We'll just do coffee house. To hang out. The abandoned warehouse is a bit much. There's a church and a coffee house. They like to hang out. Decides to stake out the coffee house because people are more prone to be a little more relaxed in a coffee house. Can't go in because of, what he looks like. Sends Geller in to plant some bugs. Even though it might be a little illegal, but they don't need a warrant. It's a public space. Is there a barista named Gunther? It would fit with a Geller going in there. So yeah, why not? We'll have a Gunther in there. Poor Gunther. Still in love with Rachel. I ain't been dropping no Eve, sir. Honest. I was just trimming the grass under the window there. I'm gonna add it. Gunther. Hours of waiting. Come back another day. I can't even spell another. I really suck. Finally here about a new meeting spot. I want to have some investigation into this, because this is mainly just talk to first guy you meet, happens to know a guy, and then you're, you know, staking out a place, hoping to hear something on accident. It's fine, but I want to have some actual investigative elements to it. And I think that'll come into the next bit. Okay. And the Act 3 will be confrontations. So, meeting. Alright, I have a plan. Goes to new recruit meeting. Geller goes undercover. Here's pitch from cult leader. They need to tear down the anti-creationist symbols. And lift the wool from people's eyes. I'm going to make them fairly extreme, so it's clear I'm not talking about just anyone who's a creationist, because I don't want to make that point at all. We'll just make it a general conspiracy theorist. Believe space is fake. Space is fake. Flat. I'm gonna go really extreme. Hollow Earth. We're gonna make them hollow Earths. 6,000 year Earth. What's another good conspiracy theory that's just ridiculous? Hitler was a lizard from underground. I've actually heard that he's a lizard person, so we'll go with that he's a lizard person, because he can't be from outer space, because there's no space. It's Hollow Earth. That they're Hollow Earthists, as in we're inside the Hollow Earth. There are people who believe that the sky, like the sun, is actually the center of the Hollow Earth. Like we're not looking up out of the Earth. We're looking up down into the Earth when we look up, which is absolutely insane. What if there's a subplot that the member of the cult that spearheaded the theft is actually planning not to destroy it, but sell it on the antiquities black market? That would be really interesting. That would make it a little bit more complex. Yeah, he's taking advantage of these people, getting them to steal these things. Nothing actionable. No proof of stolen relics. Yeah, I do like taking it to that financial angle where he's not actually like this. He's just found a way to get people to steal for him. I like that a lot, Judas. Barbasol doesn't believe him. the preacher's conviction. Looks him up. Has a record as a thief. Yeah, he has a record as a thief. Theory forms about selling the relics. I'm gonna actually add in, yeah, because it doesn't make sense that they didn't just destroy it. Alright, doesn't make sense that they didn't just destroy it, that they didn't just destroy what they've stolen. No stories about them trying to publish discreditations. Can't be trying to disprove them. Theory about selling relics. Perfect. I like that a lot. What do we have left that we need? We already have the cross. We have the mystery thriller, dinosaur, past, Christmas. We have all those elements. So I think it's just time for the confrontation. We're getting into the confrontation aspect, or the showdown. So what do we want for the confrontation? We want to find out that there is a black market deal going down. There's going to be an action set piece, of course, because that's how you have to resolve something like this, a shootout. A speech by the villain admitting that he's just taking advantage of everyone. I want one last bit of investigation into it. I was going to think about something like a research him, find out what properties he has under his name, and go to the one that it has unusual power drains to see, like, they're running lab equipment to disprove that stuff, these relics that they steal, but that just doesn't make sense because, yeah, who are they going to tell? How are they going to publish? It's not going to change anyone's minds. So they're not just destroying them. It would make more sense to just get in quickly, destroy it, and get out. It's going to be a lot easier to bring in a hammer into a museum than it is to sneak out a whole raptor. So they're not just destroying them, and that's what leads up to the black market deal. But we got to figure out the black market angle. How does he figure out the black market and where it's going to be? He has the theory that it's for selling. He could have a contact that he goes and talks to, who, like a CI or something like that, confidential informer, who he asks, hey, have you ever heard of dino fossils being sold on the black market? I think that's fine. It's not great, but it's fine to have something like that. What else could we do? We want to just plant a bug or plant a tracking device on the leader and track him down or anything like that. Want to be too bold and just ask. Now that, all right, I'm thinking of a little bit more of a bold setting where it capitalizes off the dino aspect of it. So yeah, he's going to go to his CI, and then I have a plan to make it actually a little bit more interesting than that. Goes to CI, asks if he knows about a black market for fossils, relics, scientific equipment, moon rocks, and stuff like that. Stuff like that. Absolutely. Of course, I mean, it just makes sense that there's something like that. Knows a broker who advertise is fossils, advertises fossils, set up a meeting. So yeah, he's gonna pretend to be a buyer. Barbasol pretends to be a buyer. Well-known dino person. He crafts a fake story about buying fossils to lay them to rest, put them back in the ground or something like that. Buying fossils to rebury his kin. Respectable send-off. Peace. The broker will buy that. Broker believes it. Sets up a meeting with the seller. So he's capitalizing off his skills, learning to use, lying well and stuff like that. So I think that's going to work well instead of just being, oh, yeah, that's their warehouse. Go get the fossil. He actually brings them to him, and that's a lot more intelligent. All right, we're going to go with swap. Why not? Money for the dino. Creature from... He's not... he shouldn't mention the raptor before. So a creature from cult. Arise. Glad to finally meet. Of course he's famous. Happy to forge a business relationship with him, because he has many fossils he can sell. What's something else you could buy? He'll offer like a primitive man, a Neanderthal as well. I do not know how to spell Neanderthal. And the other Homo. I can do Homo instead. I don't know. We'll just do primitive man precursor. We'll just go with that. Spell check will actually at least know what I'm talking about, or hopefully we'll know what I'm talking about. Offers a primitive man. Here's the line. I have a bone to pick with you. After the raptor fossils brought out. Raptor fossil is revealed. Geller standing by calls the cops. And calls the cops when the fossil is revealed. Thank you, Rachel. I'll just copy Neanderthal. Such a Neanderthal. I can't even spell Neanderthal. Alright, so yeah, he says the line, cops are coming. We're just gonna call this one a fight. Dino fight versus henchman. Defends himself. Uses spit poison or venom. Action set piece. Cops arrive and preacher is disgraced and cult dissolved when followers found out he was just doing it for the money. We're just going to add in for a happily ever after. Geller stays friends with Barbasol. Oh, Neanderthal. Barbasol wants to study him. Have a laugh. The end. All right, that is this story that we have. This was a weird one. This one was interesting, though. This wasn't like what was it, the one from last week that just felt weird. That one felt really, really weird. This one, I would actually watch this. Like, it well written, of course, ironing out the details, making it into a full story or whatnot. But this is just a fascinating one. This isn't even that memeable. It's just kind of interesting. I don't know how you guys all feel. So yeah, the general story is there is a dinosaur detective in 1940s New York City during Christmas who's brought this case from Dr. Geller, a paleontologist who said, a raptor fossil's been stolen, but nobody cared. Will you help? I know you probably care because you're a dino person yourself. They investigate, find out that this creationist cult has kidnapped it. Looks like they want to destroy and get rid of any relics that disprove creationism or stuff like that. So evolution, dinosaurs, space travel, everything like that is targeted by them, but they're not destroying anything that they're targeting. So might be something going on. You, over the course of the investigation, find out who's responsible, go meet up with them. Turns out it is a black market deal. The leader of this cult is taking advantage of these creationists, convincing them to help him steal these relics so that he can sell them on the black market. The dino poses as, well, himself, but just saying, hey, I'm a dinosaur person. It's disrespectful to have fossils out. I want to rebury them. And that's a very believable backstory, in my opinion. So he poses as a buyer for that, gets enough evidence that the preacher is going to go away. Action set piece, of course, dinosaur versus armed henchmen or whatnot. Police show up, arrest him, and a little bit of happily ever after, just like, hey, it's all good moving forward. Geller's gonna stay his friend. I didn't want to go a romance angle. I didn't want to go into any furry crap or dino-human sex or anything like that. So they're just friends. But I think it's a little bit of a fun story. Appreciate Judas the Goat. Yes, I'm gonna call you Judas the Goat because that's funny in the situation. For giving us the $10 super chat donation to switch it from a model to a dinosaur, because the dinosaur aspect is what really made this an interesting story and made it all come together. It's not cliche really at all because of the way it worked out. Dr. Rachel says, this is a fun story. Hopefully someday we'll come back to it and make art and a full story. Yep, it doesn't look like we're going to reach that threshold to actually do the Story Forge stream and write it out. These are fun nonetheless. These are great writing exercises for me, trying to make stuff like this work. find a path forward and still try to make a good story, because that is my goal, is to make a story that still works. And I think we achieved that with the dice rolls that we have. But thank you all for joining me for this segment. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But that means we are at the end of the show. Rider Flight Episode 8 comes to a close. Thank you all so much for watching. This week coming up on Endless Frontiers, in a few hours here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, I will be live again with Adam the Renaissance Nerd, playing some jump space co-op in some classic split screen style. We're going to be showing both of our game perspective, both of our cameras, everything like that. And this is the third time we've been doing it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll be able to stream it to his channel as well. He's a little concerned about some of the technical aspects of being functionally able to do that, but I think it should work out. So tune into that at 7:30 tonight to see us play some Jump Space. It's a great game, having a hell of a lot of fun. For the rest of the week, I'm just going to try to play some Witcher 3, The Last Wish, a mod that recreates one of the original short stories from the Witcher short stories. I'm going to be playing that whenever I get a chance to, filling it in, slipping it in wherever I have time. Probably won't be on Geeks and Gamers at any point this week, but we'll see. Might be on Tuesday night's main event over there, or gaming on Wednesday. We'll just play it by ear. Ballbusters Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on Dermy Wormy's channel. Saturday Night Drive-In will be released sometime on Saturday as well. It's going to be a video going forward for the next few weeks during Starfleet Academy, because this week, on Friday and Saturday, I will be dropping my reviews for episode 3 of Starfleet Academy, and then on Saturday, we are going to be doing the Starfleet Academy live stream review with Adam the Renaissance Nerd and Duke Devil. So that's what we have going up this week. And then, of course, next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, most likely, maybe pushing back to 3, like I mentioned at the beginning, we'll be back with another Rider Flight, another Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment. And I hope you all join me for all of that. And I appreciate all for being here. Judas says, by the way, I looked it up, and the relic of the foreskin is called the Holy Prepus. That's great. That's great. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you, Rachel, Judas the Goat, Wiley, Dave, Weasel, Legatus, and everybody else who tuned in on the YouTube and Kick side for this stream today. I appreciate you all. I appreciate all the support. Again, thank you to Judas for the super chat. But that's all that I have for today. If you enjoyed the stream, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. The more support this channel gets, the closer we are to publishing the Endless Frontier novels. Until then, have a stellar day and stay curious.